The station was crowded, suffocating almost, buzzing with the kind of silent tension only desperation could create. People jostled, sighed, shouted, cried. But amid the chaos stood an elderly black man in a worn brown coat, frayed at the sleeves, with a small duffel bag slung over his shoulder and eyes that had clearly seen both love and loss. His name was James Everett, and this morning, he held a single bus ticket in his hand, his last chance at starting over. But within moments, he would hand that ticket to a stranger, a decision so selfless, so unexpected, that it would ripple through countless lives and hearts in ways no one could have imagined. Before we dive into this powerful and emotional journey, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of doing what's right, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel, Rapple of Hope, for more true, heart-touching stories that will move your soul. James Everett had lived a life most people would only read about in old novels or dusty journals. Born in Mississippi during a time when being black meant not just exclusion but fear, he had known hardship from the start. His mother had raised him alone in a shotgun house that rattled with every storm. Still, she'd instilled in him something money never could, dignity. Even when there was barely enough food on the table, she would remind him, "Always help when you can, baby. Even if it costs you." Those words clung to him like a second skin throughout his life. He grew up strong, became a carpenter, fell in love with a nurse named Lillian, and built a life that, while modest, was anchored in joy. But time has its way of eroding even the strongest foundations. Lillian died of breast cancer at just 58, and James, once surrounded by grandchildren and warm laughter, found himself alone after a series of painful family rifts and a house fire that consumed everything but his faith. Now at 72, with arthritis in his knees and more past than future ahead of him, James was on a journey to Charlotte, North Carolina, where a distant cousin had offered him a place to stay and a fresh start. That ticket in his hand was all that stood between him and sleeping on a bench that night. But as he approached the departure gate, he noticed her, a young woman, no older than 22, sobbing quietly on the floor next to a child who couldn't have been more than 4. Her suitcase had spilled open, revealing tiny clothes, a worn teddy bear, and diapers packed in grocery bags. James didn't need to know her story. He had seen that look before, the look of someone whose world was falling apart. She was whispering on the phone, panic in her voice. Her name was Maria, and she was fleeing an abusive relationship. Her ex had tracked her to the shelter she'd been staying at, and she had scraped together just enough for 2 cheap bus tickets, but at the last minute, the prices had spiked. Now she had one seat. And 2 souls. The little girl, Layla, clung to her like a lifeline. James listened as the gate agent called his bus number. He looked down at his ticket. His future. His escape. And then he looked at them. With a quiet breath, he walked over and held out the ticket. She blinked up at him, confused. He said nothing. Just smiled. She refused at first, then begged him not to. But he gently placed the ticket into her trembling hands and walked away from the gate, never once looking back. He didn't have another plan. He had nowhere else to go. But he felt something he hadn't in years, peace. What James didn't know, and what Maria would later come to understand fully, was that her seat was never meant for her. It was meant for him to give. And that single act of kindness, that moment of sacrifice, would not only save 2 lives, but change hundreds. Maria arrived safely in Asheville with Layla and, after contacting local services and getting help from a women's shelter, she eventually found work, housing, and even went back to school. But James? He stayed in the station, dozing on a bench that night, wrapped in his coat against the summer chill. A kind janitor gave him coffee in the morning. A police officer checked in and, after hearing what he'd done, quietly made some calls. And that's when the story began to travel. A local reporter picked up the story and posted it online. It went viral within hours. Elderly man gives up last bus ticket to save young mother. People were moved by the pure, raw goodness of it. Donations flooded in. The bus company offered him unlimited free travel. A local shelter opened its doors. But more than that, people wrote letters. Hundreds. Thanking him. Telling him his act had restored their faith in humanity. Some came to visit him. Some offered him jobs. And one letter, from Maria herself, read: "Because of you, I lived. Because of you, my daughter will never know the world without kindness. You didn't just give me your ticket. You gave me hope. And I will spend the rest of my life paying it forward." James eventually did make it to Charlotte, but this time, not alone. The community raised enough for him to have a small apartment, and he became a mentor at a local church, where he taught young boys about woodworking and shared stories about Lillian, about courage, about giving without expecting. And every Sunday, Maria and Layla visited him, bringing his favorite biscuits and orange marmalade, and reminding him that heroes don't always wear medals, sometimes they wear threadbare coats and carry nothing but heart. If this story touched your heart, please let us know by liking this video, sharing it with someone who needs to believe in goodness again, and subscribing to Rappel of Hope.